I'm Brett, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Brett.
So yeah, let me start from the beginning. I'll try not to go into too much detail because I've got like a million stories to tell. So I was born in 1989 to I would say pretty normal mom and dad. Dad doesn't drink occasionally, but definitely not an alcoholic. Mom never smoked or drank in her life. And we didn't have much when I was born. But my parents, they always tried, their best. They wanted to give me everything. So at the time, my dad was studying, doing his articles. My mom was studying to be a teacher. And, once they finished studying, we moved to Johannesburg from Port Elizabeth. And, I grew up in Joburg. And pretty much, very normal. Like most addicts, I could pretty much do anything. I was good academically. I played a lot of sport, was good at sport. Because everything I always did, I always wanted to, give it my all. And so look, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I might jump back and forth. I remember, from a young age, I felt different. I always felt out of place. So I knew there was something not right with me. I can remember from the age of 3, I was really then manipulating my parents, to get what I wanted. I would go to any lengths to get what I want. I never accepted, the word no. I had to get what I want. When I was 5, I experienced sexual abuse from a neighbor. It didn't happen too long. Luckily, we left PE after that. And I would say pretty much for my whole life, I kept that a secret. I felt ashamed, I couldn't tell anybody, I don't know why. My parents always asked me, did something happen to you? And I would say no. But I think I used that a lot to pretty much fuel my addiction because, I was born an addict. My first encounter with alcohol, I would say I was 12 years old. And I didn't just have one drink. I got totally drunk till I passed out, woke up sick, threw up. And, once I experienced alcohol for the first time, I said, what, I found something that, made me feel better because I didn't feel like I fitted in anywhere. I felt out of place. And I hated the way I felt inside. So finished primary school, went off to high school, and I was always a person, like I could fit in with any group. I could change the person that I was to fit in. I could be with the nerds because I was good academically. I could be with people that play sports because I was good at sports. But still, I was always searching for something else. And, I would hang around with the good kids in school, and I would be with, the bad kids in school. And my first encounter with drugs, I used to go down to PE every school holiday to spend time with my cousins. And I had an older cousin. I can't blame him because I was always the one, like, if I saw they were drinking, I would want to drink. And, the moment I, tried drugs for the first time, I was like, this is it. And, the rest was history. And I couldn't wait to go on school holiday, just so I could use and drink because I never had that opportunity, back home to do that because my parents were around. Eventually, just doing it on holidays wasn't enough. I had to find a way, to drink or use coming back home. I remember I created this whole plot that I got all my friends at school that I would collect their lunch money for the whole week until Friday, and we would collect enough money on a Friday, and we would, walk to the bottle store after school, and we'd find someone there to buy us alcohol, and we would go to the park, and we pretty much did that every single week, and that was already starting at in Standard 7, grade 9, we were doing that. Also, I had a lot of freedom. My parents gave me a lot of freedom because they didn't see anything wrong with me because I was doing well at school. I was doing well at school, playing sport, and then I had like the secret life. So from the drinking, then it was more drugs, and just not doing it every weekend wasn't enough. I would buy drugs on a weekend, and I would take them to school, and I think in Standard 8, I used to sell ecstasy at school, especially on like Civies Day or Sports Day and things like that. And I really felt how can I say, like invincible. I had this big ego because I could do well at school, and I could do drugs, and unlike my other friends, some of them, I remember one time I took a bottle of vodka to school, and on the day we were writing a HSS exam, and we drank this bottle, 3 of us, within an hour, and then we went to write the exam. I was completely drunk, yet I got an A for my exam, and my 2 friends that drank with me, they failed. So things like that gave me a lot of ego, and I thought I was unstoppable. I could pretty much do anything and get away with it. And so for the rest of high school, I went through high school like that. I was a top student, even though I was drinking and using. When I got to matric, things went really bad. I started using crack, and my parents found out because I was bunking school. Some weeks I would go to school on Monday, not go to school, I would be in my uniform, and I would disappear for the whole week and come back on Sunday, and no one would know where I am, because I would jump in a taxi from the north, because we lived in Sandton, and I had a group of friends from PE who lived in Sandton, but they had family in Rosettenville, and these were really bad guys. They were into stealing cars and hijacking and robbing people and breaking into houses and things like that. And the crazy thing about this is that I really wanted to be a part of that. And I remember my mom asking me in matric, what do you want to do with your life? And I said I wanted to be a gangster, which is very funny for a boy that's growing up in Sandton, wants to be a gangster. That's very weird. And so, yeah, I had the option. That's when my parents realized, there's something not right with this kid. They had no idea that I had an addiction problem. They just thought maybe I'm just being naughty, or so my mom said, listen, it's either you're going to go to rehab, or and you're going to leave school in matric, or you can go to school and you're going to go and see someone. So obviously I wanted to finish school because I had plans for my life. Even though I was using, I said, I wanted to, at the time I actually wanted to be a doctor. So they got me a psychiatrist, and I started seeing a psychiatrist, and once a month I would be tested, and I worked it out, I would use at least one. I would stop using a week before going to see the psychiatrist, because I knew exactly when the appointments were, because that's when they would test me, and I'd just be clean just for that week, go to the psychiatrist, get tested, negative. As soon as we left, I would get home, run off and use, and pretty much did that for the rest of the matric year, and I still passed matric with decent marks. I also remember writing a final, maths paper, and I was really nervous that morning, and I made a joint in the morning. I got to school, and I was shaking. It was maths paper 2, And I asked my friends, who wants to smoke with me? And nobody wanted to smoke. And so I smoked a joint myself. And after the paper, I was like, this paper was really difficult. And everyone's like, no, it was so easy. And funny thing is, when the marks came out, I was the only one who passed. Everybody else failed. And again, that just fueled my ego and made me believe that I was invincible. So I finished school and I went to varsity. I didn't go to lectures. Pretty much we waited outside the bar at UJ for the bar to open at 10:30 in the morning, and we'd just drink every day. I made it through the first year of varsity. I also had a kid in my first year. Second year came, then obviously the drugs became more because I was also DJing, things like that. And it got to a point where I didn't know how to live anymore. I was literally having drugs for breakfast, lunch and supper, and I couldn't study, I couldn't do anything but use. So I went to my parents for the first time and said, listen, I have a problem, I need help. And I went off to treatment. That was my first treatment center. It was very Christian based. It was a 4-week program. I came out, I think I did like 3 steps and I said, okay, great, I'm good. I found God, I can just go to church and I'll pray and I should be okay. I stayed clean for 3 months and I said, you know what, maybe if I drink and not use drugs, I will be okay. I got drunk one night and picked up my drug of choice that same night. Kept it a secret, and this was pretty much the cycle. I would get clean for like 3 months and relapse and go into treatment. And then after that, my parents said, there's something really wrong with this kid. I then went to Akeso, which is like a psychiatric, it's a rehab, but more of a psychiatric hospital. And then there they said, all right, you got bipolar. That's what's wrong with you. And I was then put on meds and pretty much took meds for like 2 years. But the meds, I don't know, wasn't agreeing with me. So I said, maybe I should smoke some weed with the meds. And I was like feeling okay, but it wasn't working out as well. And I stopped taking the meds and just smoked weed, and then I started using drugs again, and back to square one. So that's pretty much that's been the cycle for most of my life, trying to get clean and relapsing, because I was never really willing to, I never worked the program. I just thought, if I don't use drugs or I don't drink, I will be fine. But it took many years for me to realize, the problem was not the drugs or the alcohol. The problem was definitely me. There was something wrong with me. So if I go back about 5 years, when I left Joburg with my partner, I met her. I was a mess, and when I met her, she was also using, and I said, right, what, I can be with this chick, and we can help each other. And we decided to do like a geographical. We left and we came down here. Change of scenery did help a little bit, but I was still smoking weed, and I said I'll be okay if I just smoke weed. That wasn't the case. I occasionally, I would, run off to Durban and I would go and get my drug of choice. And every time I would pick up, I always ended up in more pain, because, the drugs were not doing what they used to do. There was no enjoyment anymore. I just had this pain that I was walking, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. So I decided to come to meetings. This was about 3 years ago, because I had an incident at work where I was sent to work in Johannesburg for like 2 weeks, and basically I started using I drove to Durban, bought some drugs, and drove to Joburg, and used for like 2 weeks, and spent all my money. I spent the money of my company. I sold a company laptop, and yeah, I was in trouble. I was in trouble. So I decided to work, well, tried to work the program then, but I think I probably did steps 1 to 3 as well. And I stayed clean for like 8 months, and I stopped coming to meetings then. And obviously I relapsed because I wasn't working a program. So when I relapsed then, I decided to smoke weed. And I said, if I just smoke weed for like a week, because like it was really heavy that weekend. And I said, I'll stop after a week, and then I'll try again. But I didn't stop. I carried on smoking, and I used here and there for like the next 2 years. And I really battled, I wanted to change. I wanted to, stop. But I was really ashamed. I didn't want to come back to meetings. I would see the guys around in Scottsboro, and I was really ashamed. I thought I couldn't, there was nothing I could do. And then basically last year, just before the 4th of August, I had relapsed, and even the times before when I would pick up, every time after I would use, I felt like killing myself, because I was just tired of going through that. I don't know why I would use, because it didn't change anything, it didn't make me feel any better, it just always made me feel worse. And so I did try and kill myself. Obviously I didn't die. Every time I tried, I couldn't die. As hard as I tried, because I actually didn't want to die. I was a coward. Maybe just that, that whole thing was just screaming out, for help. And so yeah, I drank a whole bottle of whiskey, and I took like 2 cards of Still Knocks, and yeah, obviously I didn't go down, but I ended up in hospital. And I stayed at home. My boss, they put me off work for like a week, and I decided to come back to a meeting, and that was the 4th of August. And came back to my first meeting again, and I decided I need to get a sponsor so I can work the program. And that's when I approached Caleb. And he was, he said, what, I don't normally sponsor guys out of the Cedars, but okay, I'll help you. And that was like a relief, And I started working the program, with lots of vigor and energy, and I was like doing my step work, and things were going really well. It was really easy to stay clean, when you work the program and you come to meetings regularly. But time passes, and your ego's back, and you're clean and you got this, and you start coming to less meetings, and then what you find is that you get yourself into a mess, because you're not staying in the program, and you're not living by spiritual principles. You start doing things you shouldn't be doing. So we start with dishonesties, and then you start looking again for things outside of yourself. And I tend to do that a lot. I never feel happy, content with just being. I'm always looking for something to make me feel better. But once you work the program, you forget all about that. Your self-obsession goes, and you start thinking about others more than yourself. But yeah, it's not easy. But if you work a program, it does make your life easy, and you got to be honest, and you need someone to tell your stuff to. There's some things like I can't tell my partner about, and that's why I've got a sponsor. I can literally tell him anything, and he won't judge me. He can guide me. And that's been a big help, because I've always been one to isolate, when I feel, when I feel like I'm not in a good space, but I put myself there because I obsess about things. I stress about stupid things that don't even really matter. I like to control everything. So I've had to, when you work the program, you figure out all these things about yourself, when you do your inventory. And you then also find out, the root cause of all your problems, and your character defects. And then you look at things like all your wrongdoings, and then you can find out, why you do those things. And that's why it's important to work this program, because it's not just about, the main thing is just to stay clean, but there is something there's something wrong with us. We defective as people, and so life then, that wasn't living. Always, being drunk and trying to feel something that, you're not, because you're not content with who you are. Coming into recovery, it's been life-changing for me. I never thought that I could ever live clean and sober. I had no idea that I would be sitting here today, sharing a 1 year. I thought it would be impossible, but I always looked at people sitting in this chair, sharing their story, and I always said to myself, one day I wish I could do that. And only through working this program is it possible. The higher power stuff, that was very easy for me, because I grew up in a Christian-based home. We went to church regularly, but I was always the kid, especially in active addiction. I would question God, if He really exists and things like that, because I always thought I was in control of my life. But ironically, how could I be in control of my life if I couldn't control my using or drinking? So I definitely wasn't in control. So I just hope that I can continue to work this program. I want to stay clean and sober for the rest of my life, because it's far better than drinking and using. I've got support. I always thought I was alone, but that's not the case. And I don't think I have anything else to say. I'll stop there. Thank you.